It doesn't matter if it's good or bad, it's content. Hello everyone, but especially you. It's been a while since the last video, I'm sure you feel guilty about that, but welcome back to the forgiving embrace of Patrick Alexander's world of content. I'm that guy who used to be funny on the internet, Patrick Alexander. I'm back in Australia now, a country that this footage is clearly not of. No, this once again is Malmö in the south of Sweden, back in the first week of January. Most people are still on holiday. It's a quiet time. Months ago though it was, no doubt you remember every detail of my last video, so I don't need to remind you that me and my friend Renee were working on a project in a game development co-working space called DevHub, run by Game Habitat. DevHub occupied an entire building at the address Torggatan 2, and I promised that I would take you on a sneaky little tour of its stately historical guts. This, at last, is that tour. The entrance is up ahead, just past the shit Dumbo, up among the clouds, held aloft by the awesome power of 2 unlimited lyrics. Though, are they clouds or spat out wads of chewing gum? Is Dumbo flying, or is this a bird's eye view of him just rolling around on the gross concrete? Well, let's leave him to it. We'll let ourselves in. And look, on the list of current inhabitants, that's us, Plot Hole Games. That's right, we have a name, which makes us a studio and not just a couple of weirdos. And right near the entrance, across from the reception desk, is the guest office, containing us. Well, not right now. The door looks very plain. We decorated a bit after this footage was taken. And the office itself also looks plain. We had just moved in at this point. There's that big graveyard right across the road, looking particularly beautiful in the snow. You can tell it's warm inside though, because there is a cactus. Every building in this part of the world seems to have central heating, with radiators like this somewhere in every room, even the stairwells. The walls are thick, the windows at least double glazed. In Japan, most buildings are very poorly insulated, and just days earlier I had been shivering in my Japanese apartment in a much milder winter. But in Malmö, indoors was always comfortable. Now, something I didn't mention in the last video is that we, Plot Hole Games, were the very final guests to occupy the guest office, at least at this location. DevHub still exists, but it has moved to a new address in Malmö. That's one reason I still wanted to put together this video. It's kind of a last look at DevHub in this incarnation. The temporary new location seems great and very modern, but Torggatan 2 here is really something special and worth having a poke around for posterity. Here's the Atrium, Christmas decorations, still up, of course, a decent amount of natural light, a space that feels really open and roomy, but somehow cozy at the same time. People have lunch here and play table tennis, but it's also an event space when you rearrange the furniture. Here's a room where you can have some peace and quiet, or even a nap if you need one. Every workplace should have somewhere where you can have a nap. Naps are good for productivity. That's why people take naps, because you're like, I want to get this work done, but I really need a nap. You let people take cigarette breaks, but not naps? Where the fuck are your priorities? That kitchen island you see was often somewhere to put a plate of fikabröd and share it with a couple of people and wait for more and more passers-by to be pulled into its sweet and sticky orbit. You might hear about fika in Sweden and roll your eyes a bit like, oh, come on, everywhere in the world has coffee breaks. But it really was like a magic spell here to conjure an instant, low-pressure, drop-in social event. It's like hanging out in the kitchen at a house party, but without the house party. As I mentioned, this is early in January. Everyone is on holiday, but not me. I'm here to work. So for the first couple of weeks, I mostly had this whole building to myself. It was like that childhood fantasy of being accidentally locked in a supermarket overnight. That's right, Mr. Policeman. I had to eat all of the Tim Tams and Fruit Loops. Otherwise, I would have starved to death. Yes, it was very grown-up of me to realise that. Thank you. What's that? A reward? How much? And you're going to legally compel my parents to start giving me pocket money like all the other kids get? And buy me a computer? Well, I should say so. Anyway, the point is, I got the ping pong table all to myself. Didn't have to share it with anyone. In the stairwell here is a little display about the history of the building. It started as a clothing factory in 1892. As we continue upwards though, you'll see that each landing has a chalkboard map of the floor, and as we ascend the floors, you may notice more and more empty rooms, unoccupied offices, and that should give you a clue as to why DevHub has moved out of this address. It's a multi-story building with a lot of space, and lately there just haven't been enough people occupying it. It's been a long time since I worked in or gave a shit about video game journalism. I haven't been following the games industry closely. I know there have been a lot of layoffs and project cancellations in recent years, supposedly as a result of companies overexpanding during COVID, though I expect that mistake is being used as a cover for a lot of other shit as well. Anyway, if you're currently looking for a job, it seems grim. If you have a job, it seems uncertain. As for southern Sweden in particular, well, from talking to people in Malmö, even though it seemed like half the people I met had just taken redundancy from massive entertainment, it seems like the industry is pretty healthy, broadly speaking. I mean, people still play video games, right? But what's happened is the middle has disappeared. A co-working space like this, like DevHub at Torggatan 2, with its mix of spacious offices and little hot desking nooks, is a perfect place for solo devs and small indie studios, as well as medium-sized studios who need a bit more space but haven't grown enough yet to need their own building or whatever. In fact, IO Interactive, who just put out that James Bond game, used to reside here at DevHub until they outgrew it. But that's just it. The medium-sized studios are disappearing, either growing into big studios or being absorbed by big studios, or perhaps going out of business altogether. And for whatever reason, there are no longer any new medium-sized studios to step in and fill the gap. Of course, there are still plenty of solo and indie devs, because that, after all, is just individual people or small groups of friends who decide one day, let's make a game, like me and Renee. But even a small city's worth of indie devs is not enough to cover the rent and management of a building like the one we're looking at now. It's a shame, but anyway, that's why Game Habitat decided to move DevHub to a new, smaller, more sustainable location. I'm really glad DevHub will continue to exist, because it seems to have been great for the local industry and even just the local scene as an event space and so on. And who knows, if things go exceptionally well for Plot Hole Games and our project, maybe we'll be back there again in future, renting an office properly this time. And I hope DevHub will continue to have a guest office in the meantime, because it was such a great experience for us. Speaking personally, I made a lot of connections there, made some new friends, people doing the sort of stuff I'd like to be doing, and in the long run, that's probably the best value I could get out of being physically present in an industry-specific co-working space like that, and in a wonderful, welcoming little city like Malmö. If you're interested in DevHub, by the way, I will of course put some links in the video description to point you in the right direction. Feel free to get in touch with the Game Habitat staff. They are all lovely. But returning to what I said earlier about the middle falling out of the games industry, if you work in games, tell me, is that just the Swedish industry, or is it the same everywhere? And why is that? Is it because small indies are somehow unable to grow into medium-sized studios? Or is it because they are unwilling to grow? They just don't want to? This is something that came up in a conversation recently with some game dev people back here in Melbourne. Many solo devs and small independent teams are solo or small on purpose. They don't have any interest in growing, they just want to sustainably keep doing what they're doing. That's a topic worth exploring a little more deeply, maybe in another video. So if those feelings ring true for you, please tell me your thoughts in the comments and I will add them to my own, Borg style. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little look around at a cool game dev co-working space that kind of doesn't exist anymore, but also kind of does. This isn't exactly a game dev channel, this is a me channel where I make videos about whatever I want when I can. So if that sounds good to you, check out my stuff and subscribe if you want to. As always, I've enjoyed making this video, you've enjoyed watching it, but that doesn't make us friends. Goodbye.